to get started. What do you want on your tombstone?
Pepperoni and sausage.
Joey, Tombstone Pizza.
Once you start thinking about new Tombstone Pizza's killer sauce and real Wisconsin cheese, nothing else matters. So what do you want on your tombstone?
Well, welcome. It's the Greg and Leisa show.
I'm Greg.
And I'm Leisa. And our topic this week is Epitaphs and Legacy. You know, a few weeks ago we did Laughter is the Best Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be doing some laughing today too as we discuss and go over some of the epitaphs.
And these are from way, way back. Like, this is not like you would think it would be a new thing, people wanting to put funny nonsense on there, but it's really not.
Right. There's some old stuff and some fairly new stuff, and it's just amazing what people decide to leave as their last words. But one of the funny thing is that, yes, sometimes the deceased do have the last laugh, you know, when you think about it. And as you hear some of these, you're going to see. But, you know, before we get to them, you know, have you ever thought about what you want on your tombstone or your final words to be? Because in doing this research, like I said, it's been a whole new shedding of light on what you really want your, final words
it's important.
to be. Yeah. But an epitaph is some words written in memory of a loved one. And or about their career or accomplishments.
And they're, heartfelt ones. These are standard ones you see in loving memory, always in our hearts, will never be forgotten, rest in peace, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So really, what do you want people to remember about you? What do you want your epitaph to read? Do you want it to be sentimental, loving? Do you want something funny? Do you want something to leave an impact on someone's life when they read your epitaph? Because really your epitaph is your final word.
Yeah, it's really the only, you're dead and gone, and that's the only part of you that's really out there communicating.
Right. And when you figure we're only one or two generations away from nobody knowing who we really are.
It's really.
Yeah. And you have to decide, do you want to pick out those final words, or do you want to leave those final words to be picked out by your loved one? So think about it, because people will read your tombstone 100 years from now, if they're walking by it and to see what it says.
Mm-hmm.
But here are some of the famous epitaphs.
All right.
So Mel Blanc, the one that was the voices for a lot of the Looney Tune characters, he has "That's all, folks."
Yeah, that was a good one. Frank Sinatra's, obviously we know who Frank is. His "The Best Is Yet to Come."
Yeah. Dee Dee Ramone says, "Okay, I gotta go now."
Mm-hmm. Rodney Dangerfield, "There Goes the Neighborhood."
Yeah.
These are real. These are written on
real.
These people's, or carved or etched, or however you want to put it.
Right.
These are on the tombstones.
Right. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.
Sammy Davis Jr., the entertainer, he did it all. So that one's not as funny, but that's more of one we talked about describing the career.
Right, yep. Right. And Joan Hackett had "Go Away, I'm Sleeping."
That's a good one.
Yeah. But there's even some funny everyday epitaphs from real tombstones, too, throughout the years in different parts of the country.
And these are people who are not necessarily high profile or celebrities, so they weren't trying to reach somebody. They weren't doing some marketing thing. These ones are just what they wanted to do.
Right. And it may not have been what they wanted, but it was what their family wanted.
Well, that's true as well, because sometimes your spouse does end up picking one, as we'll see, and that gets...
Yeah, and you're going to see by some of these. And the first one I thought was funny, and this one's in Nova Scotia, and it says, "Here lies Ezekiel, age 102. The good die young."
Somebody got to tell Billy Joel about that one. Yeah. I think he would appreciate that. So if you know Billy Joel and you're watching, have him reach out.
Oh. In New Mexico, it says, "Here lies Johnny Yeast. Pardon me for not rising."
It's amazing. Yeah, like how...
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
I know.
So this next one here, we got one from Pennsylvania. "Here lies the body of Jonathan Blake, stepped on the gas instead of the brake."
I can't imagine him wanting that on his. I think that would be from somebody else that probably
would
chose
have
that
to, but
for
you know
him.
what? If that's how I go, I think I want something like.
Yeah.
And these are tragic situations. We don't mean to make light of that, but
No.
this is.
No.
There's,
but these are for real.
There's nothing harmful with what's happening here. There's nothing
No.
harmful with doing something like this.
No. In Nevada, it says, "Here lays Butch. We planted him raw. He was quick on the trigger, but slow on the draw."
So yeah, older. He might have lost a duel or something.
Yeah.
Right. Vermont in 1803. So this is a woman who wrote this for her husband. So his comely young widow, aged 23, has many qualifications of a good wife and yearns to be comforted. So she was putting a personal ad for herself on his tombstone.
That's right, she was. And that was from 1803. So, in England, there's Sir John Strange. It says, "There lies an honest lawyer," and that's strange.
Certainly would be. Yeah.
This one's my favorite.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So it's from Georgia. I told you I was sick.
In England, there's a Jonathan Fiddle went out of tune.
Okay, so Vermont, Anna Hopewell's. Here lies the body of our Anna, done to death by a banana. It wasn't the fruit that laid her low, but the skin of the thing that made her go. So evidently, she slipped on a banana peel and fell. Yeah. The classic comedy gag, and or at least that's what somebody wants us to think that happened to her.
That's it.
And it certainly could happen. That could happen. As much of a comedy kind of trope as that is.
Yeah. In PA, there's an 1870. Ellen was fatally burned. 1870 by the explosion of a lamp filled with R.E. Danforth's non-explosive burning fluid.
That's more or less exactly what.
Yeah, they wanted you to know that R.E. Danforth's non-explosive burning fluid was what fatally burned her.
Well, yeah, I mean, it says non-explosive. It doesn't say it can't light on fire.
I know.
Those are two different important distinction.
Yep.
Just because it's non-explosive doesn't mean it's not dangerous.
That's true.
All right, and then in New York we have Mr. Smith died, 1942. Looked up the elevator shaft to see if the car was coming down. It was. That's
I mean, but some of these are funny, some of them are sad, but they are their words regarding their lives left in history to be read by those who are left behind and for generations to come. So, a lot of times we think, in loving memory is pretty typical, or, in our hearts forever. But when you think about it, after you are never known anymore, after a generation or so, what do you really want to leave? So, what would your final words be today? We aren't promised tomorrow.
Certainly not. We're not promised a minute from now.
Yeah,
we're not promised a second. I could fall over right now.
Right, I know. Me too.
Would you carry on with the show, or would you tell somebody?
I'd call 911.
And then keep going with the show.
No, I would tell somebody. I would stop. So
of course we would.
I would probably turn that over because I wouldn't know how to turn it off. I'd know how to turn your phone on, but
you would. Yeah. There's
yeah. So, Greg, what would you like to see as your epitaph, and how do you want to be remembered?
Well,
that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is tough. So I did the joke in our little intro about what do you want on your tombstone? Pepperoni and cheese from the old Tombstone Pizza commercials.
Yeah.
I say old; they're in the '90s, but that's pretty much 30 years ago now. So that's it. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I've done anything spectacular I'd want people to know about. I love a good dad joke. I love a good pun. I can't imagine putting that on there, or at least I can't imagine your daughter letting me get away with something like that. But I don't know.
It's hard.
Something more eloquent than like he tried. Like that's it's got to be a better way to express that, because that's pretty much it. A lot of challenges and certainly a lot of failures, but kept going.
I think I'd like to have something that would go forth for generations to come, which is, God always loves first, or seek God first, or I don't know. I'd have to think about coming up with something that, would plant a seed, but yet would explain who I am and my family would remember me, and then those who no longer know me might,
How big's your stone gonna be? It's a
oh,
lot of stuff to put on there.
well, it's not very big, so I got to be short and sweet.
It'll be a challenge, but if anybody can do it, it's
Yeah.
you. So yeah, regardless of what we're putting on our tombstones and what those last words are, you know, that's certainly kind of your last communication to the world, but it's not the only part of your legacy. So we do have to think about what kind of legacy we're leaving.
Right. If you ask someone what kind of legacy you are currently leaving, what do you think they would say? And what do you hope they will say? I mean, I know they'd probably tell me or they'd say I'm crazy, that, I laugh a lot.
We're all right, but as we learned in laughter is the best medicine, that's
right.
good, and
That's right.
nothing wrong with that. And yeah, you've had some ideas in the past, but crazy. At least you did something.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there thinking about that stuff that never actually try it. So
yeah,
like this right here. Look at this.
I know.
We're living it.
Yeah. So, think about it. Think about your last words that you would like to leave for your family, or the words that you would like to leave to impact others. But will you be remembered, and for what?
Yeah, and then like you said, we're really only 1 or 2 generations away from nobody knowing who we are, and certainly by 3, you're pretty much
you are
gone. So it's tough to really leave a legacy like that.
It is, and when you think about it, I look at my mom and dad, and my most of my relatives have passed on. My grandkids don't know them. You know, my my kids do, but my grandkids have never met them, and so we never know really how much time we have left, and we have to think about it. And one of my granddaughters had said once that every time I give her a gift, sometimes it makes her think that I'm dying. And I said, well, we aren't promised tomorrow, and we never know when we are going to die. And that kind of goes back to those throws that I had ordered one year for Christmas, where you can write personal notes and messages and Bible verses on them. And I wanted them to have those so that when I am not here, I have that, they can wrap themselves up and think of that as a hug from grandma. But we need to pay attention just as much about our afterlife, when we die, as we do as we're living.
Right. And yeah, because legacy, our names will be forgotten, but
right,
how we raise our kids, our faith, all that stuff, it carries on in some form or another.
It does. And the Bible talks about, it carries on for generations to generations. But as Christ followers, and we believe in Jesus Christ, we love him and we have a personal relationship with him. And so we want to leave a legacy for our children, our grandchildren, and those, our friends and family, to live their lives for Christ.
All right. So we have a Bible verse. I'm surprise.
Yeah.
So 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 7 and 8, the King James Version. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord.
Right. So we know our loved ones that, are left behind are going to have good memories, and hopefully not too many bad memories, but we want to leave the lasting memory of God's love for them, because that's so important. We can't express it enough. And I will say that any impact that we can have on their lives is important, especially when it comes to spiritual things for God. And it's like, my one granddaughter both granddaughters were trying to qualify for state for the horses. And the one granddaughter had a really tough beginning, this last weekend.
Yeah.
And she was ready to retire the horse. She was done with them, and things were just, terrible.
Yeah.
And she was crying and upset. Well, I sat in the stand and I sent her a text and I said, whoops, sorry, said her name.
I can.
Anyways,
I'll take care of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyways, I said, shake it off, hug your horse, and pray. And then I sent her a prayer. And she only had 2 more things to qualify for that day. The next time she qualified, very next run. And so then I sent her a text that said, again. I said,
this is gonna be a
but
good one.
you know, I said,
put my editing skills to work.
Yeah. I said, but God, answers prayers when you have faith and believe.
Does. Yep.
And it was something that you could see. You could see when, the text was sent, which was before the race. You could see after when the text was sent. That is, God working. And I told her she needed to thank God because she qualified on the next 2 things.
And that situation is one of those things. There is no other explanation for that. It's not like you went back next week and you practiced a lot of stuff and then you did better. Right. There's no real appreciable amount of time in between there.
Right. But we have to take every opportunity that we can, to share God's love and what he's doing in our lives and how he helps us and how we make it through each day. There's a couple songs that come to mind on legacy that expresses, what we want to leave behind for those as we depart this earthly world. And the first one it's a song by Casting Crowns, I Don't Want to Leave a Legacy. And the gist of the song is that they don't want to leave a legacy because they want Jesus to be remembered.
Right.
And so the chorus says, I don't want to leave a legacy. I don't care if they remember me, only Jesus. And I've only got one life to live. I'll let every second point to him, only Jesus. Jesus is the only name to remember. And part of the verse for part 2 is, did I live the truth to the ones I love? Was my life the proof that there is only one whose name will last forever? When we think about it, because we always talk about how people are always watching us and seeing what we're doing, and our kids, to people we work with, to people we see in the streets, to everything. So we're always being watched. So, what, would people say? Right. What do we want people to say? But there's also a second song by Steve Green.
Find Us Faithful. I'll read this first part. Let us leave those behind us, the heritage of faithfulness passed on through godly lives. After all our hopes and dreams have come and gone, and our children sift through all we've left behind, may the clues that they discover and the memories they uncover be the light that leads them to the road we each must find.
Right. And think about that, because, that's when some of the truth comes out, when they're going through your belongings and they're trying to wrap up your estate and they're trying to, figure out your life and what to do with everything. What are they going to find? You hope that what they find is the truth about how you've been living. That there's no, great surprises.
Yeah, you're never going to be perfect, but you don't want major.
No. Yeah. So the chorus that says, oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. May the fire of our devotion light their way. May the footprints that we leave lead them to believe, and the lives we live inspire them to obey. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. And I think that's, as Christ followers, that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we're living that way, so people will find us faithful. And that's, what we strive for. It's just like what we strive for when we see Jesus. The words that we want to hear is, well done, thy good and faithful servant. But just because we have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ doesn't mean that our lives are easy or perfect or simple with no challenges, because through our lives, we trust in God, and it doesn't matter what we're going through. And we are all sinners, and we all fall short of the glory of God.
Absolutely.
And, we live by our faith and belief in Jesus Christ. And there is one thing that we know for sure: God knows our name.
Yep. He wants everyone to seek him.
Right.
Loves everybody. He's just waiting for you to call on that name.
Right, he is. And sometimes that's why he's tarrying, because we've heard multiple times over my lifetime that Jesus is coming soon. There's that song, Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet their doom, trumpets will sound. I remember thinking when I was in high school, I would never get married because Jesus was going to come.
Yeah.
But we never know what day or time or hour he is going to come. But we have to think about it, and we have to really put some forethought into the legacy that we are leaving.
Right.
What are we showing and what are we displaying? It's important.
Absolutely. More Bible verses?
Yeah.
I saw that on here. Wow. All right. Well, so first one here from Psalm chapter 127, verse 3. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. So we have a responsibility to raise them in a way that honors God, leaving that lasting legacy of faith for the next generation, and on and on and on, ideally.
Right. Psalm 112, verses 1 and 2. How blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who greatly delights in his commandments. His descendants will be mighty on earth. The generation of the upright will be blessed. So we fear the Lord and we obey him. And, we want, it's just like the verse that we talked about in parenting, where, if you honor your father and mother, your, kids and your will be blessed. The land will be blessed. And so God has a plan for everything.
Sure does.
And a time for everything. It's just like Ecclesiastes says, there's a time to live and there's a time to die.
Still think somebody should write a song about that section.
Yeah. Well, you better get on it, Greg.
I'll check that out later.
Yeah.
So another verse here, Matthew chapter 9, verse 36. And seeing the multitudes, he, Jesus, felt compassion for them. So we need to recognize the world's needs and respond with compassion and action. So, yeah, I mean, that's what Jesus did. He wants us to do that. That's a legacy. Just on a note here, compassion and action doesn't necessarily mean you tolerate everything somebody else is doing, or
no. But it means stuff. Your compassion has to take action.
And if you, I mean, Jesus' example is the best example of what that means, because he certainly didn't tolerate everything that was
no, he didn't.
Was going on.
But we need to pray that God will use us to accomplish his purpose. We need to ask God to give our children a sense of purpose and direction and vision and mission, because we are here. The Bible says everything will work good for those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose.
Yep.
And he has a plan for everybody. So we have to seek God. We have to ask for forgiveness. We have to pray, and we have to start building a relationship with Jesus Christ in order to leave a legacy that will be pleasing to God.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So seek God, ask forgiveness, start building that relationship with Jesus, or keep going in that walk if you already have that relationship, because that's how you leave a legacy that's pleasing to God.
It is, and we have to think about, when I was growing up, and I'm sure you've heard it too, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Mm-hmm. And we all know that words do hurt, and words do cut. And we have to make sure that we choose our words wisely, and that we are responsible for what comes out of our mouths, and we are responsible for how we live. We are responsible for the decisions that we make. And God sees everything. You can never get away from God seeing anything, because he sees all, knows all, is all.
And in that way, our epitaphs, obviously we get to decide what's on a piece of stone, but our epitaph and our legacy that is actually being written every day. Every action we're taking, everything we're saying, that's building all of that, building the reality of that, building that legacy of your life.
Right.
So
we're going to leave you with one question this week to think about is, what's yours?
What's your legacy? What's your epitaph? What do you want it to be?
Right. What are you leaving behind? What are you working on leaving behind for those that you love? Mm-hmm. Because, do you want it to be a here and now thing? Are you being selfish, or are you, showing your kids how to be a responsible adult and how to work through things and challenges?
Does anybody actually know how to be a responsible adult?
Well, yes, the Bible tells us how to be a responsible adult.
Anybody else? Is there anybody who's figured that one out all the way?
Yeah.
But you're right. And honestly, we strive for that, because can't really do any of these things perfectly. Right. Absolutely cannot do any of it perfectly.
We're never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But we are going to strive and continue to leave our legacy.
And then that striving and that struggle sometimes leaves as much of a valuable legacy as if you had somehow done the thing perfectly, which you can't do. But
But they're going to see how you persevered.
Yep.
It's not how many times you get knocked down; it's how many times you get back up.
You gonna sing it again?
No.
No. I thought you were leading to it, but
no, I'm not gonna sing it this time. But anyways, we want you to put as much forethought into your epitaph and your legacy and what you're leaving behind as much as how you are living your everyday life, because they coexist together.
Right.
And you have to, really pay attention to your words, your thoughts, your actions, and what your kids are seeing you do and what other people are watching you do from afar. Yep. And we just ask that, you seek the Lord, you pray. That's the first place to go. It's the first place I always go is to God.
Absolutely.
But, I wouldn't live without him. I'm going to have it no other way. So anyways, think about that this week. What's yours? What's your legacy? What do you think about your epitaph? And, think about it, pray about it, ponder on it. Because if you don't pick one, somebody else is going to.
Right. And on that note, do you think they have YouTube in heaven? And do you think the Lord watches every week?
He doesn't have to watch. He has a front row seat. He sees us right now.
Yes, of course. But
yeah,
it would be. It was funnier when the Lord had YouTube.
Yeah.
Don't ruin my story with facts. No, of course, but
yeah. Well, anyways, laughter's the best medicine.
Yep.
So you guys
coming back to that. Think about it. What's yours? See everybody.